Hello and welcome to the latest in the Leaders with Ambition podcast series. Today I am absolutely delighted to welcome my guest, Adrian Hyde. Adrian is a partner at Begbiz, and it's going to be a really interesting podcast today. Starting with Adrian growing up in Staffordshire. Adrian's dad was a trade unionist, so from a young age, he actually met a really diverse group of some really interesting people, and that's continued throughout his life as well. He's got a background in law, so he is a fully qualified and trained lawyer, and it was really interesting because in his career, as he'll discuss with us, he was offered an opportunity to go into insolvency and restructuring. And after advice from some close friends, he decided he was going to take that opportunity. And this story is really amazing to me that he joined a company. 6 weeks later, he'd actually decided that he was going to studied, took and actually passed his JIEB. So that's all within 6 weeks, which those people that have sat that exam know how hard it is. So I think it shows a lot of his determination and focus. We'll talk us through the MBO of the Business Recovery Division of Chantry Vellacott, which was something he did with some of his contacts, his peers. And he really wanted to create this very special type of business advisory service, which he did, and the subsequent sale to Begbiz. Along the way, he's currently the IPA president. He's also a massive advocate of EDI and particularly social mobility, which is something that we'll talk about around particularly apprenticeships. That's something that I think is quite dear to Adrian as well. And we'll talk about the importance of networking. So lots for us to cover today. And without further ado, Adrian, I'll pass over to you to bring your career history to life for us.
Thanks, Nikki. It was really intriguing to be asked to do this. It was very interesting. I didn't know quite what to expect until we kind of sat down and had a chat, and it's actually really interesting looking back and some of the things that you remember and think about. So yeah, I was born in Stafford. My dad, when I was 10, took a job as a full-time trade union organiser. And that led us to move to Leicester with his job. And that was all around the time of the miners' strike. And so he was...
Challenging time, really challenging, yeah.
Really. And we were, Leicester, there was the mines in Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, so very, very close to where we were. And Dad was involved in sort of, rallying around collections amongst all his member groups in different parts of the engineering industry. And then meeting the treasurer of the NUM on the motorway services to hand over buckets of cash and coins and things for the miners. But that was a really good introduction because, as you say, I got to meet some really interesting people, and my dad introduced me to a firm at the time, Seifert Sedley Williams, who were acting for the miners when the government were sequestrating their assets and trying to break the strike in as many ways as they could. And that led that firm to offer me a bit of time in their office in London during my summer before I started university, which was the first thing that really got me interested in the law, although they were quite a diverse practice, because on the one hand, they've got the trade union side, they've got an immigration side, and then they had a music industry practice as well. So three very diverse and
very different. Yeah.
I'm not sure that they would necessarily fit together very well these days. So I did that, which was really good fun, and then went to Staffordshire. My first year at North Staffs Poly in the second year, and I graduated from Staffordshire University. Which was great. And during the years in the summers between university years, I worked in different places. And my first year, I worked at a small firm called Staunton Townsend in Leicester, which was a kind of boutique-y corporate practice. And they did some conveyancing, but the conveyancing came out of acting for house builders, developers. And they offered me articles, and I'd always wanted to come further south, and I accepted it to start with. But then I had another offer to go and do a summer placement the following year at the firm that's now DMH Stallard, which was based around Brighton and Sussex South Coast. And they said to me, well, you need to accept an offer of articles before you can come and work for us in the summer. So I accepted the offer, went back to Staunton Townsend and said, really sorry, but I've always wanted to go south and hopefully get to London at some point. And they said, well, come back to us if you have a change of heart, and there'll be news, but go and see what you think, but feel free to give us a call back. And I have to say, it was, we're talking a long time ago, and it was when it was Don Milam and Haddock. It was a very, very different place.
Yeah.
And my abiding memory of it was sitting outside. So I was in a partner's office, which was your quite old-fashioned big partner's desk, 2 chairs in front of it for clients. I was on the little desk in the corner, and outside his office sat his secretary. And I
probably ran the company, ran the firm, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely, but he had his coffee at 11, and he had his tea at 3. So at 11:05, if he hadn't got his coffee, he would pick the phone up and say, Miss Jones, it's that time.
Times have changed, Adrian.
Absolutely. And I just thought, I cannot work here. So I rang Staunton Townsend back in Leicester, and they said, well, great news, we're merging with Edge & Ellison, which means we'll be Leicester and Birmingham. And very shortly after that, Edge & Ellison merged with a firm called Calo Easton, who were in London. And so within a relatively short period, Edge & Ellison, which then became Hammond Sodard's Edge and now Squire Patton Boggs, got me
your job in London.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love that. And, you obviously were very focused on achieving your qualification and becoming a lawyer. What was it? What was it that was driving you to do that?
It was. It all started with a BBC Two TV programme. So for the youngsters that are watching this was in the days when we had BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV, and that was it.
Yeah.
Channel 4 came a little later, and then Channel 5. But we
was very exciting, wasn't it, when Channel 4 was launched? Wow.
Particularly as they all turn off at all the stations shut down in the evening.
Yeah.
At midnight. But there was a BBC Two programme, was a drama, and it was about American law students, and it just looked really interesting. So that was the thing that was nothing. No, I didn't know any lawyers, I didn't know any solicitors, nothing. I'd just seen this TV programme and thought, I fancy doing that.
I love that. And you made it a reality, which is even better. But you really enjoyed it, didn't you? Once you started working, particularly when you moved to London as well, you were really enjoying your job. You were enjoying working with really bright people, which is something and it's again, the ability to be able to really focus and commit, because you're a very determined man, aren't you?
I am. I was, my brother and I have been very, very competitive with each other our entire lives, and still are now. And I've always been very determined. Yeah, I mean, I still go and run half marathons and things now. And just last year, decided to become a body pump instructor. So did the training course for that, and it's just something to do.
Love that.
But so I have, and I did enjoy it. And I was fortunate because Staunton Townsend, well, when it was Edge & Ellison, from the very beginning, my first 6 months, I did insolvency litigation, because they had a small team in Leicester that did insolvency, but only mainly the contentious side. Then when I moved to Birmingham, my second seat I did commercial property. My third seat, I moved to Birmingham to do insolvency, to move to the insolvency team, where they were quite a large practice there. They'd got 2 partners and probably 6-8 supporting staff, and they ran a mixed contentious and non-contentious. So you were expected to do everything, all aspects of it. You would do the business sale, and then when you find out that there's a hole in the accounts and you're going after the directors, you do that litigation as well. And that was great.
Great exposure, Adrian. Great exposure and experience. Yeah.
And it basically meant that was me done then. You know, 6 months insolvency litigation and 6 months full on insolvency. They said, "What do you want to do for your 4th C?" So I said, "Insolvency," and that was it then. So I carried on with it, and I carried on with it there for 10 years. And
you had some really good mentors around as well. I know that it's something that you talk a lot about now, don't you? Mentorship and also sponsorship, but because you personally had that around you from a quite an embryonic time in your career.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I was very fortunate to work for a man called John Sullivan, who, along with Jeff Drew, ran Edge and Ellison Insolvency in Birmingham, and he was, we were joined at the hip for many years, really, on all sorts of projects. We moved out on site for 5 weeks into Yorkshire when a big group went down, which did mining, transport. They had a fleet of freezer trucks and refrigerated lorries and things. But it was, again, in the days before the internet, it was literally, I took a computer and I was the first fee earner to have a computer on my desk. As part of it, there was a trial of I think 3 or 4 of us had them initially, but then this job came in and we had to go on site, and we were selling bits of the business, so we were doing the drafting of things on site, because you didn't get to email it across to someone at the office to say, can you check this and do these searches and things. You just had to get on and do it yourself where you were. I remember I got into quite a lot of trouble because I just picked the computer up and put it in my car and took it with me. Because all the people who were doing the job were all the people who were doing the job were like, fantastic. We're going to get this done. We can get this. We're going to get a secretary to come up as well. She can bring her computer. And I arranged it for them.
They're not like laptops these days, are they? Back then it was a big old box.
It was a big old thing. But the admin and IT people said, what the hell is he doing? You can just take a computer out of the office.
I love that. So you obviously found your love, as you say, for insolvency and restructuring, and that led you to your next opportunity, didn't it? When you made the decision that you wanted to become an IP.
Yes, yeah. I think over the next 8 years, between 2000 and 2008, I joined Denton's, but weeks later, I'd only been there sort of 4 or 5 weeks, I think. Came in and there were these glossy brochures on our desk to say, welcome to the brave new world of Denton Wild Sapt. But unfortunately, the underlying message was, well, all bets are off for, agreed for promotions and things. We'll just have to see how it goes. And when I was expecting it, I was told, almost definitely next year, which is...
And as an ambitious man that you are, that's not going to work for you either.
No, absolutely, no. So I threw my toys out of the pram and went somewhere else.
But the reason that you moved as well is because, again, you wanted to follow this career path, didn't you, that you had really set out for yourself?
Yeah. So the 2 things I wanted were A, London, and B, partnership.
Yeah.
And I got a great opportunity at Matthew Arnold and Baldwin when a friend of mine, Gavin Jones, he was moving up to Manchester to Halliwell's, and he'd said to me, "Oh, what do you think about this move? I've had this offer and we talked about it." And I said, "Yeah, it sounds great." And looking back now, perhaps as we should have thought again. He accepted the job and then rang me back and said, right, now that's done, do you want my job at MAB as the partner? So, and I took that. It was Watford's not that far out of London, so I took that, got the partnership, was there for 5 odd years, and then came back into London to join Moonbeaver.
When you became partner, did you then think this is what I've been striving for? I've achieved this, or were you looking for what's next? You know, are you that kind of person thinking, what's next now? What am I going to do?
It absolutely was, because it was, you know, it was partnership. It's like, okay, so equity. How do I get equity? But I did want to be in London, and MAB opened in London, so that was good. I got to go back, and then I've been friends for many years with Frances Coulson, and Frances approached me and said, would I like to go and join her at Moonbeaver, which I did, and I did some fantastic work there. And I think it was one of the experiences I had there that really drove me to make the decision that I made, because I was doing a job for Heath Sinclair at Mazars, and he was Proceeds of Crime Act receiver for a guy called Craig Johnson. And one of the things we were doing was repossessing a stately home. And Heath had something else big come in, and he said, look, I just don't have enough people. Will you go and lead the repossession work on site? You can have, 1, maybe 2 people from my team, but, will you go and do it with them? So I did. And it was brilliant, actually, being on the ground and doing the stuff, which you get the chance to do much more, I think, as the IP than you do as the lawyer. And it was that being the person then that made the decisions was what really excited me, rather than saying, option A is this, option B is this. Yeah. Option A is more risky. Option B it will take much longer, or and say maybe on balance you should go for option B. But actually being the person who made the decisions was what really excited me. So then after that, David Ingram, who I did quite a lot of work for, he'd been a partner. He was a partner at Chantry Fellicott, and in 2008, he handed his notice in to take a job at Grant Thornton and to take most of the team with him that did the Proceeds of Crime work. So Richard Toone and Kevin Murphy said to me, will you help us, because you know the Proceeds of Crime POCA industry, will you help us find a replacement? So I sat down with them and we went through lists, and I went through pros and cons and went through questions.
Do my job there, Adrian.
And they asked me, I think they met a few of them, and then they took me out one night to take me out for a meal, got me very drunk. I thought it was to say, thank you very much for all your help. It's been great. And they said, it's been really interesting. Why don't you want the job?
Which I love that you weren't even expecting that, even though you were really working yourself into that role. Yeah.
And it was really fun because, I just, at the time, I just sort of said, well, I don't have an IP license, but you don't need one for Proceeds of Crime work. You just have to, the court just has to be satisfied. The prosecutor usually has to be satisfied that you've got the capacity and capability to do it. And I spoke to a few people. I spoke to Colin Haig, who's at Azets now. I spoke to Barry Stancombe at 33 Chancery Lane Chambers. I spoke to the former confiscation lawyer at the CPS, Trevor Millington, who's sadly not with us anymore. And they all said, sounds like a great opportunity. And, Trevor said, there's absolutely no problem with me accepting your capacity, capability to do this. So, yeah, why not?
Yeah, just grasping that opportunity again, which is something that you've done throughout your career, isn't it? An opportunity there. Let's try it. Let's do something different.
Yeah, and I did. And Kevin said, well, why don't you maybe do one of the papers this year and do 2 next year? And I sort of said, well, at the moment, if I start, and I started on this Monday, the 6th of October, I'm starting this job, I've got no staff and no work. So I've got quite an easy run. If I'm in the same position next year, then I'll probably be looking for another job anyway. So I'm just going to give it a go. No one would expect me to pass. If I can get one or two of them, great. If I can get all of them, amazing. But if it all goes wrong, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I joined the final revision course at BPP, and I went in with the mentality that if they're telling me to do it, all I'm doing is just exam technique. That I've done insolvency for 18 years. I don't know some of the IP side, some of the accounting stuff, so I'm going to have to work at that. But otherwise, I am told this is about exam technique. So they tell you to do it like this, you just do it like that. There's no point in thinking, I'm reading the question and I'm going to do a glorious 10-page essay answer. If they say it's bullet points, notes, short phrases, they don't have to make sense as continuous sentences. Just do it like that. And that's what I did. They said, eat half a banana halfway through because that will give you an energy boost. Take these vitamins, no alcohol, coffee's fine. And I just did all of it, every single thing. And I think part of it, I think in my head, part of it was any apprehension that I had that I might fail, or was really just, I couldn't have done any more because everything they told me to do, I did.
You did it. But again, it sounds, when you talk about it, it sounds like a process, but everybody that has sat those exams knows how difficult it is. Yeah. And also the pass rate is low as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
For the exam. So amazing that you did that in such a small period of time. But again, putting your determination and your focus on there, you weren't going to fail, were you?
Not if I could help it, no.
Yeah.
No.
It's a banana. There you go. For anyone listening, that's what they need to do. It's a banana's the key. So you qualified. Half a banana, sorry. Yeah, not a full.
Half a banana at the beginning and the other halfway through.
Yeah, that's the key to it. So you started to develop your career and obviously really enjoyed what you were doing as well. Yeah. And that's when you decided that you and a couple of the other partners were going to look at the MBO.
Yes, yeah. And it was a really interesting time. It's not an uncommon problem in our industry, and that's the tension, for want of a better word, between the insolvency restructuring part of the practice and the mainstream audit and accountancy side. And they will, they may balance out, they may be counter-cyclical, but if one side of the practice can see the other side of the practice A, doing very well, and B, earning very well, that can quite often create tensions. And to be honest, I wanted equity. There was a ring-fence financial model with the insolvency team, and the accounting side of the practice said, well, yeah, we really want it to be equity, but not really on the terms that the insolvency team are on, because it's too rich. It's too, it just creates more inequality and division. So in the end, we started talking about what were the alternatives, and we started negotiating to buy out the entire business recovery team, and that we did in 2015 to create CVR Global.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience. Just
sleepless nights along the way, I'm sure.
There were sleepless nights along the way. There were sleepless nights after we'd done it on occasion. But, I remember the Sunday afternoon I happened to be in the office, and Richard and Kevin were at their respective houses with their respective fax machines at home. And we were trying to come up with our logo and stuff. And we just got like a piece of paper, and someone got a font and made it, and then there was some gaps in it, and we were all sitting at our houses with Tipp-Ex post-it notes to put them over it, just to change it slightly, and then fax it to the other two, seeing what we could come up with. And that's how we, the name just came from Chantry Vellacott Recovery, because everybody called Chantry Vellacott CV, and we were always CVR, CV Recovery. So that's why we came up. And the global bit was, we wanted to be big. We wanted to be overseas. And we were looking at the domain names for the internet.
Oh, okay.
And we were looking on the ones that said there were CVR, and CVR.com. It was one of these people sort of don't hide
so many sites, don't they?
Yeah. And then market them.
Yeah.
And it said, this domain is for sale. And I made an inquiry, and they said, make an offer. And I made an offer. I think it might have offered like £1,000 or £2,000 or something. And they said, when we sold this.com, this one was 200,000. And we were like,
okay, thank you, goodbye.
That was a short conversation. But it was at the time when a load of new domain names, the new ends of them were coming out, had just been launched. And CVR.global was one of them. And
which is fantastic, yeah.
And that then became part of the logo, and we were, I was Hyde at CVR.global.
And that was part of your strategy as well, though, wasn't it? You wanted to, like you say, make it bigger and better, and you also wanted this real special feeling for the firm as well. You wanted it to be different, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. And we wanted staff to be involved and engaged, and right from the beginning, we said, we want to come up with some form of scheme to reward staff. If the firm makes profit, then we'll come up with a scheme that pays people a share of the profits somehow. We can work it out, and we did, and it was a really good place, and we really enjoyed it. And over the time from 2015 to 2021, we grew from 30 odd people to nearly 100.
Massive growth.
Yeah, it was. And we'd opened in Jersey with taking a small team from Moore Stephens, and we'd got our base in Gibraltar that we'd been working on when we were Chantry Vellacott, because they had an office there, and we picked up a lot of really good work there. So that was the start of it. And then by the time we got to January 21, we were in Jersey, Isle of Man, Cyprus, Gibraltar and the British Virgin Islands.
Amazing. You must have felt, all of you, when you were looking back on that as well. And we talked, didn't we, about reflecting over periods in your career, but it really must have felt like you created something special, and what you'd done is what you set out to do. You achieved it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did.
Great satisfaction, really great sense of satisfaction. And then you decided that you were gearing up to sell, weren't you?
Yes, yeah, we were. We weren't necessarily gearing up to sell, but in the sort of for the pre-COVID era, we'd had a couple of approaches from people, and we'd had discussions internally with the other partners, and were saying, how are we going to deal with succession? Because I'm 56, Richard and Kevin are both 60. So it's something that, was very, very high on our agendas, but there's no real big enthusiasm for to stepping up and taking it forward. So we were sort of thinking, we've got to do something. We had an approach just before COVID, which we had a couple of meetings with them, and then obviously we said, okay, not knowing what was happening at the time, it was literally just happening. We sort of said, when this thing's all over in a month or so,
in a couple of weeks,
let's have another chat and see where we go. And then it happened. Quantuma were bought out in August 20, and the phone, it was announced and it was very public when they were bought out, and all of a sudden that week the phone just didn't stop ringing with people just saying, "So what are your plans?" Some brokers saying, "Oh, we've got people who are interested. We've been asked to approach you," and Mark Fry rang Richard Toone. And it was nice for a direct approach, and it was good for Richard because Richard's now on his third spell at Begbie's, having worked there twice before.
He obviously likes it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a good sign. Always a good sign.
Yeah, and so we sort of had a bit of a dance around with two interested parties, and Begbie's were just so easy to deal with, and when it came to the deal, and we got heads of terms easily, and we sat down with the guys, Nick and Mark and John, the general counsel, and they sort of said, these sorts of things are torturous, in that one party starts here, the other party comes back there, and then 6 months later you meet there. And they basically said, the Begbie's guys said, lawyers, try and pitch it at the middle. So don't go in there.
Don't mess it around. Just go in. What the best offer for everybody.
Just go in with where you think we're going to end up. Don't
great advice.
And it worked really well. There was not a huge amount of haggling over particular clauses. There was nothing particularly unreasonable in the first draft. So, and it was a real pleasure to do. And then, the most hilarious bit, no names. We were the equity partners and the not salaried partners, but the fixed share equity partners, fixed share partners, and the four equity partners were all talking to each other constantly, and the fixed share equities had a different agreement, and one of them was responsible for. I call him the sheepdog because he was responsible for dealing with any question, answering any questions they got, corralling them, making sure that everything was happening, that all the documents were getting negotiated properly, everything was getting agreed.
That's a hard job for someone with a bunch of partners.
Yeah, absolutely. And it got to 1 o'clock in the morning, half 1 in the morning, Friday night, Saturday morning. We're there, all agreed, sign. So what you need to do is you need to send an email with the agreements in Word attached and a PDF with your signature in the email that says, please see attached my signature page to be attached to this agreement.
Right.
One of them had signed a blank signature page and gone to bed.
Oh my gosh, no.
So we got to 1:30 in the morning.
The whole deal could close now. It could go.
It might even have been later than that. And it was like, we're really sorry, we've got to ring the board. The board have gone into the office in Manchester, the chief exec, corporate counsel, they're all in the office of Manchester to do this deal. We're all doing it remotely. And one of them's gone to bed, so we can't sign it. We couldn't wake him. Nobody could wake him up. They tried phoning him. So it was mortifying. So we ended up doing the deal on the Saturday morning.
And that must have felt, again, absolutely amazing for you all to what you'd achieved.
It was. And what has been a really, people sort of said, oh, you know what Begbie's are like. It's all dog eat dog, and you'll be pitching against your partners in other regions on work and stuff, and it's all really fractious. And we were sort of, it's the best deal, and it's happened well. And, well, we're tied in for a bit, but when the tie-in's gone, then, well, we can leave. It's no big deal. But actually, it's been nothing like that at all. And all of the sort of warnings that some people gave us to say, it's just not true. We've had an amazing time. And what's really good is we always said we never did 10 million turnover as CVR. We always said we say we are a £10 million practice. I think the close we did high 8s, low 9s was the best we did. Post Begbie's, the group of us that went into Begbie's, including losing one or two people, we've done it 3 years running.
That is absolutely phenomenal.
We did it 3 years running, and we just achieved, what we said we could achieve.
Yeah, you've done it.
We've done it.
That's great. And what a sense of satisfaction again. You've got, and as you were saying, you really have this aim and focus and clarity around what you want to achieve. And so, to do that and to do it 3 years on a run is pretty special, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Pat on the back, I think, for that, Adrian. And share the story about the corks, because I love that story.
Yeah. So when we did the CVR management buyout, we signed the deal, and we then went around the corner to the Charlotte Street Hotel with the managing partner and the finance director and a couple of the other senior partners from Chantry Velicott. And we had a few bottles of champagne celebrating. And I kept the corks, and I kept the three bottles of the three corks from the nice bottles that we'd had. And then when we went for our first anniversary of the buyout lunch, Richard, Kevin and I'd had them framed in these box frames with the CVR logo and everything. So we've all got one from when we did that.
That's special, isn't it? That is really special.
It is. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And you, as you mentioned there, you're really enjoying what you do. I know you do absolutely loads of travel. We've just been discussing, your upcoming travel plans, but it's this real global feel again is something that I know that you're very passionate about driving, and sounds like you're really achieving that. And I think it's interesting. You're obviously the IPA president, current president. Is that because you want to pay it forward and you feel you owe the industry back? Because you're a very, very busy man and you've taken on the presidency as well. So what are the reasons for that? A bit more pressure on your shoulders, Adrian? Is that what you need?
It was very, very much a sort of giving back and trying to add something to the profession. Right. Nobody knew where we were going to end up post the government review on single regulator, and actually being part of that to help shape regulation for the future, regulation going forward, was something that I was really keen to do. And I think that the industry has a lot of challenges at the moment, from the JIEB challenge. There are less people taking the exams, there are less people passing the exams. There are certain areas where it is difficult to recruit. There is obviously hybrid working is quite an issue, in that a lot of learning in what we do you get from sitting next to someone who's been doing it for 10 years and hearing them on the phone. That's a lot of where you get your training from. And the experience of, on the job training. So out of the office, on site, doing those sorts of things. And I remember talking to a recruiter 12, 18 months ago who said to me, what's your policy on days in the office? And I said, well, one of my partners says that his team are in the office 5 days a week, and that's only because he can't make them come in 6. And I think there's a lot of force in that in terms of training. But the recruiter said to me, it's interesting that a lot of people now, before they ask how much money the job is, they ask how many days they need to be in the office.
That's so true. Yeah. And in fact, it's a challenge across I think, many industries, but particularly professional services, people-led businesses. And I think it is still, every time I speak to a partner in a professional services firm, they're asking what other people are doing around hybrid working, because I don't think anybody's got it right yet. And I think, to your point, there is so much learning and development that happens in an office environment. And when you look at people that are coming through, so, Gen Zers, one of the things that they really want is learning and development. So it's hard to kind of being able to balance those two things off. You're not going to get your L&D necessarily if you're not spending more time in the office. It's a real big challenge.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think, there's lots and lots of innovation that people have put in and trying in order to try and improve recruitment. And one of the things that we were passionate about at CVR, and Begbies are similarly passionate about, is apprenticeships.
Yeah.
Because you can actually, get some really good people who've come out after A-levels and don't necessarily fancy university, don't want to go and do accountancy. Say, well, I'll go and do some accountancy training, some modules on a 1 day a week college course. But apart from that, I can be in the office and learning and, really getting my hands dirty. And I know when we were talking at last year's IPA conference, this was one of the sessions was talking about apprenticeships and the benefits of apprenticeships and what people think and feel. And I think one of the benefits that people get from it is it can give them a lot more confidence as an 18, 19-year-old to be going into a job where they're immersed in it and they're being trained at the same time. And I was able to get one of our apprentices. In fact, he just finished his apprenticeship, and obviously we kept him on.
Yeah.
And he and I did a kind of fireside chat on the stage about his apprenticeship. And it was really well received, including from a very senior officer at HMRC who was at the conference, who said, A, it was lovely to see, but B, he said it just reminded him so much of his own career many, many years ago when he joined, I think, a civil service organisation as a school leaver and learning on the job. And I said, at the time, a lot of people did that 30, 40 years ago, didn't go to university, went straight into work.
And then it stopped, didn't it? And everyone started to go to university.
Yeah,
and I think you're right. I think it's actually turning again now, the wheel, because of the amount of debt that people are leaving university.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the challenges of finding a role as well. So I think you're right. I think it's starting to come full circle a bit. But I think also, as I mentioned at the start, you are very passionate about ensuring EDI in a firm, aren't you? Making sure that people, there's inclusivity and the sense of belonging and authenticity. And also the apprenticeship, I think, really plays well into a social mobility model, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does. And it's something that we, there are certain areas, certain geographic areas where recruitment is really difficult. Yeah. Really, really tough. So Kent, if you look at the number of insolvency practitioners throughout Kent in the kind of smaller firms and things, there are so few. And it means that the recruitment is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And part of it might be because of the high-speed rail link and everybody can get into London in 35, 40 minutes if they want to. And therefore, anyone that wants to do it goes and does it in London rather than doing it in Kent. But that means that led us as CVR to really push the apprenticeship model in that geographic region, because we couldn't recruit externally very easily.
And you need people. Yeah. And being able to offer, I think, real career paths is just amazing. And, keep it up, keep up the good work. I think particularly, as you said, taking that apprentice with you to the IPA and exposing someone at a embryonic stage in their career to networking, which again, in
Yes.
your industry, networking is absolutely essential, isn't it?
Yeah. I think networking, but a lot of things feed into each other, actually. So you progress through your networking, but you progress by actually having the spark within you that gives you the confidence to go and do the networking. So, it's great that we have, a lot of people that put themselves out there, that really, really prepared to just, I'll have a go, I'll get in. Yes, I'll go to that event. You can't go. And I sort of say, well, I'm too old to be going to that. You should be, you guys should be going.
You're travelling. You'll be in a different country, Adrian. That's why you can't go.
And it is. I think Begbies is very good at giving people opportunities. We've got the head of our BVI office now, Brian Simpson, moved out there. We had an opportunity. We needed some staff in COVID, so he went on secondment with someone else for 3 months, and he came back and he really liked it and was looking at a business plan for how he could potentially get out there with another service line.
That's great.
And then the person, the incumbent, handed his notice in anyway, so it gave Brian the opportunity. So it was like, can we support him? He says, can you support me on A, B, and C to do this? And I'll go. And we did, and it was great. We've just taken someone across to Guernsey on secondment. Was an initial secondment for 9 months. I think she wants to stay for a year at the moment and see where we go from there.
Well, that's great workforce planning as well. It's recognising, that you've got people that have got skills or maybe need to step up to that next stage. If you haven't got anything for them where they are, it's thinking about the group as a whole. And that's when it's great if you've got a bigger footprint and presence, isn't it? That you can offer more opportunities to people. So you're not holding people back. You're constantly trying to develop and encourage people, which is really good.
Yeah. And the firm, the support from the firm, the offshore team is doing well. You've always got that chicken and egg question is, are you doing well enough now that we back you to move to bigger premises and get more staff? Well, actually, we're heading in that direction. So we need to do it now.
Yeah,
because if we do it now, we'll get the people and they will come.
Yeah.
And we're doing it, and the Begbies have been very, very supportive. We're doing it everywhere. We're looking to move to bigger premises in Jersey. We're looking to move in Guernsey. We're moving at the beginning of October in Gibraltar to a bigger office in the same building. And it's going
really well in the right direction. I love that. And so with you mentioned some of the challenges that are facing partners, particularly in professional services firms and IPs. You mentioned there that this whole dynamic around people, and this is you are people businesses, so that is why people are so essential. And I know that's something that's giving lots of people headaches, but you're coming up with different ideas and suggestions around the apprenticeship scheme, which I love. What else do you think is a challenge, or is going to be a big challenge in the next few years?
So one of the issues that I think people in insolvency struggle with at the moment, and it gives a knock on into promotions and JIEB and then succession, and it's around increased regulation and the level of increased regulation and the elements of our job that now become hugely process driven for the compliance side mean that there are levels of staff, if you don't work hard to make sure that people get variety, there are levels of junior staff that could spend their entire life if almost doing data entry and form filling and just preparing standard reports on templates, and that's all they do. And that's not a recipe for a successful, happy workforce going forward. And if people get siloed into that kind of workload, they're not going to be enthusiastic about promotion. They're not going to be enthusiastic about doing the JIB because they're not going to have had enough experience of the bits of the job that really are fun. That that make them interested enough.
Motivate you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But surely that is, I know AI is, is a challenge in itself, but surely those are the sort of things that, you could automate, allowing people to be able to do more of the client-facing stuff, the in real life, the learning, that will give them that sense of enjoyment and job satisfaction, and also help, take those mundane tasks away as well. That's why it could be a benefit, isn't it?
It could, and hopefully it will. But I guess there's the risk. I don't know enough about the data sets within AI as to whether or not we're truly a big enough profession to make it worthwhile to develop the software, the applications, the AI applications for our sector. Because it's not a case of globally just saying, okay, this works really well for AI, because insolvency in the States is completely different to here. It's completely different from France. It's completely different from the Netherlands. Yes, there'll be similarities in certain jurisdictions, but some of the standard software like IPS that people use for case progression, and everybody has it in the UK. Places like the British Virgin Islands and Jersey and Guernsey aren't big enough, because even if Turnkey create it and customize it for each of the processes in each of those jurisdictions, they're not going to sell enough licenses to make the cost worthwhile.
To make the money.
So that's the only worry with the AI. With AI, is that yes, there is in theory. I'm just not sure in practice whether or not the data sets that will be generated will make it improve enough.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it spans out, won't it? Definitely. Yeah. And the speed that AI is developing and changing is like nothing we've ever seen, isn't it? So that brings challenges in itself, I think, for firms.
Absolutely, and I think globally.
Like you talk about your computer. You talk about walking out with your computer years ago.
Yeah. I mean, globally, it's there are huge challenges with, if you look at AI. I mean, if you look at, for instance, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's not AI, but as a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
The amount of electric that is used to actually maintain the servers that hold and manage the blockchain and stuff. There is as much electricity used to maintain Bitcoin as is used by the entirety of Argentina.
I mean, that is incredibly frightening.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Because, then you might say, well, how about we do something like really revolutionary? And maybe if we print money, possibly, on acrylic, and then, because once it's printed, that's it. It's fine. You just keep using it till it needs replacing.
Yeah.
There's no ongoing maintenance costs of cash. So, I think the same
very interesting, won't it, moving forward?
Yeah, and the same issues arise with AI. It's just the processing power required, and the data to maintain the data and to actually operate the applications.
There's going to be lots of, again. Also, we do need to get checks and balances in place for lots of things at the moment around AI, which is a constant concern for so many people, isn't it? Something we need to look at. So talk to me about your words of wisdom. Having had such an illustrious career, what would you tell Adrian when he was starting in his law degree back in the day?
I did an interview, a 5-minute interview for Collis Krill offshore law firm for their Pride Month diversity hub that they have across their entire practice. And I was interviewed for 5 minutes by one of their partners in New York, and it was something that had happened to me the week before, and I'd been talking to a lady, and And it was quite a difficult conversation in the sense that I didn't know what to say in response, because I didn't want to embarrass her. I didn't want her to feel embarrassed. It was, it was a mistake. And we were just talking about, other halves. And I said, oh, yeah, I've got a quiet week next week because my other half's away. And she said, oh, what does she do? And it's immediately sort of thought, now, if I say it's a he, she'll be really embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because she should have not
said that.
Not said that. So my words of wisdom is really short. Never assume anything, and it goes from meeting people, from interviewing bankrupts, interviewing directors, preparing litigation. It looks like that. Don't assume that it is that. And it, across all aspects of work, but particularly with people, meeting people and talking to people, and just don't assume. And it can just a moment's pause.
Yeah. And I think, as you say, that is for every aspect. That's your personal life, that's your professional life. And in professional services, as we've mentioned a few times, it is a people-led business. So that's a reason why it's even more important, I would think. But Adrian, I have to say, I've absolutely loved the conversation today. I could keep talking to you forever. I find you really interesting. And that's great words of wisdom to end on. Never assume. And take that forward, people, definitely into the future. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, Adrian.
Thanks, Nikki. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Good, thank you.